Thanks, Nash. Welcome everyone to Module 2 of Getting Ready to Teach Pearson Edexcel International A-Level History. Now, hopefully a lot of you we took part in Module 1 on Monday, and obviously, as I said then, this is the module which will be going more into detail, especially on exam questions, question types, actual answers from students in the past, and just kind of seeing what you think, having a bit of marking, and I've hopefully designed the delegates document for you to maybe take away from this and adapt, use in departments, use in schools, use in centres, um, for whatever option if you do take this ahead. Okay, so again, I'll come to all of that in the space of a couple of minutes. Just to repeat, obviously, this is a recorded meeting. And we've got all cameras off and muted at the time being. I'm going to see how this goes. The first thing I'm going to do is, if you haven't got access to it already, in the chat box, I'm going to drop in just the link again to some sample assessment materials. This is the one that was used and I was referring to on Monday. I've double checked this link works and everything like that. I've just got it off the Pearson website. If that link doesn't work by the chat box, then I recommend going to the Pearson website and obviously just following, typing in International A-Level History for Pearson, and then it'll be in a little section saying sample materials. And what that is there for, none of the questions in that are appearing on what is in your delegates documents today. However, it's a good document just to look through to see how the exam papers are structured for students, to see how the source booklets look, to see how interpretations and viewpoints are provided as well. Now, I'm going to try not to repeat myself in terms of a lot of the stuff that was covered on Module 1. What I am going to go over again is obviously the assessment objectives, just a quick breakdown, because obviously they're key to how questions are answered. Obviously how questions are answered, but also how markers mark their questions. Now, if we just start zooming ahead, obviously the agenda is very similar. So we've got a couple of hours really I want to get through the welcome introductions and aims of the sessions, a very quick rundown of the exam papers, because obviously this is a follow-on to Module 1 and those assessment objectives, and then paper 1 question types and practice marking and looking at actual answers for Unit 1, paper 2, Unit 2, sorry, question types, practice marking, taking a break in the middle of it, hopefully within an hour, and then paper 3, paper 4, and then obviously the support and any questions as the session closing. So there's a bit more to go through. It's a bit more interactive for yourselves in terms of looking at answers, maybe providing in the chat box what you seem to think what level mark it would be. Now, obviously, I've got a mix of topics here from the French Revolution to the US Civil War to Germany, etc. Now, do not worry if this is something you've never taught before. This is knowledge that you're unsure on. That is not the point of this. What the point of this is to just look at how students will be writing answers, what the key parameters are, what the examiner's looking for in that answer, and just looking at a general mark scheme. Okay, so you've already got your delegate. Some of you might already be skimming through that. Try not to skim too far, because you'll see there's activities in there and such like that. Okay. So aims and objectives, quickly run through this. Obviously, the key one again to understand the assessment objectives for this qualification, understand those question types. I think we've probably got that from Module 1. But key for today is the mark schemes. And to practice using mark schemes, obviously to be something that you take away from this, continue to practice using mark schemes. It's something you maybe want to have close by on obviously your desk in school and the centres, and just kind of like always going through, kind of rereading it, especially the generic ones. And obviously to learn about support provided, which will be similar to what was said in Module 1. So just to go on to the assessment straight away. As I kind of took us through in Module 1, the split up into two halves, really. You can take a modular route or a linear route. You've got the advanced subsidiary in history, that is units 1 and 2. And that's obviously considered the first half of this. And that can obviously be awarded as a discrete qualification, or can contribute to 50% of the overall international A level in history. And then obviously that full IEL is the 4 externally examined units, 1 to 4. And to achieve that qualification, students must complete all 4 units to achieve it. So I won't spend time going over this. We've seen these the other day. They are in the sample assessment materials. It's also, if you get the specification downloaded, you can see these lists as well. Don't worry about writing anything down from these again. This is recorded, and this PowerPoint will be accessible for you to look at as well. You might want to do that on a separate screen whilst I'm talking through it. Again, this is for units 3 and 4. And so what I've tried to do today between units 1 to 4 is provide enough of a variety to cover everyone's perhaps knowledge, to cover it, like, to keep things fresh and not just focus on, right, we're just, doing France, we're doing India, and try and provide a breadth of knowledge just to show how students are actually writing these answers. So again, won't focus on this too much, but again, think about this as we're going through how the answers are written as well. Okay, that's student and teacher interest, relevance to today's world, the local context for students, building in these assessment objectives into scheme of works, integrating mark schemes, and anything what was taught at Key Stage 4. Where's the links? How can that support students? Is that more helpful for students? And again, I'll spend a couple of minutes on this. So 3 key assessment objectives for you to be thinking about when we go over answers and have a look-see at them. AO1, you can see into percentage-wise that is worth 50% of the overall international A level in history. Okay, so a lot of the answers that the students will be writing, are focused on, looking at making substantial judgments, exploring concepts, cause, consequence, change, continuity, all those familiar words that I think as teachers we will say a lot of the time, but sometimes it's about making them super clear to students. AO2, evaluating appropriate source material, primary and or contemporary to the period within its historical context. And then the AO3 is to kind of another 25% here is the analysis and evaluation. It's worded as in relation to the historical context, different ways in which aspects of the past have been interpreted. Okay, so a lot of the time if the students will get a question, which will be, you'll see them in a minute, it'll provide a statement, okay, which is basically an interpretation. It's about the students then challenging that and move and explaining with their AO1 knowledge, that side of things. Again, just the rundown for uniform marks. This is all available. Went through this on Monday. I'm quite conscious that we want to get into the marking. So kind of, again, you've got, obviously, when it's at IES level, you're running up to an A, between an A and an E. By the time you get into the full A level for units 1 to 4, it'll go to an A star as well, and that will be achieved. They have to achieve at least 90% of the total uniform marks available across the IA2 units combined. Okay, so that A star is almost like a separate calculation to be doing. And again, it comes to when you'll be mock marking, when you'll be looking at what your students produce, you will be able to target those. You will know your students the best. So straight into paper 1. If you can have your delegates booklet, please, and turn to, you want to be looking at document 1 for me, please. Generic mark scheme for unit 1 questions. So this will be a generic mark scheme for any of those units that you see on screen now. When it comes to being an examiner, there are generic mark schemes, and then each of those units or questions will have a specific mark scheme. What I haven't wanted to do is overburden you with specific mark schemes for the topic we're looking at today, which will be France and Revolution. Okay, so I've just provided the generic ones, and that's the level I want you to think at. Okay, I don't want you to worry too much about the knowledge, because you'll see that when we look at the examiner's reports. Okay, I think, again, I could fill this document with everything, but it's quite overburdening as well. Okay, so we just need, if the idea is get the generic one, look at the terminology in that, what's its actual focus, and what are we looking for from students to achieve from a strand 1 level to a strand 4 in achieving 25 out of 25. Okay. I'm just going to open the chat quick in case I miss anything. The Martin, sorry, I've just seen your message in the chat there. It should be in, once it pops up for me, there's a little sidebar by the Zoom app or online, which will be called resources, and everything should be there to download. If not, check that you're using the Zoom app, because I think online, if you're just using the app like via the internet, then it doesn't always like showing them for whatever reason. The link I provided just other sample assessment materials, which are just helpful to have. Okay, so that's no problem, Matt. Sorry. Right, so the first question we're going to look at for this mark scheme, and I'll kind of walk and talk us through this one just to see what kind of like how we can gauge it, and feel free to put a couple of things in the chat box for this. So, historians have different explanations for France becoming a republic in 1792. And then the statements provided, the impact of the king's flight to France was the main reason why France became a republic in 1792. Assess the view using your own knowledge of the issue. 25 marks. So what I've done for you there, and you should see this on yours. You've got the question. The question is document 2, as well as the answer that the student has written. So if you by all means start talking, you might want to have a quick skim over that. So AO1 is the 10 marks, and AO3 where you're analysing and providing different interpretations and challenging this interpretation and this viewpoint that's being provided in the question, is 15 marks. So obviously, in terms of the weighting of the question, okay, I think naturally the way the questions were, that a lot of students will kind of provide and challenge or support a viewpoint and interpretation, but it's just that AO1 does kind of, as I said on Monday, think of it as an amalgamation, integrate into support the AO3 as well. Okay, so that's kind of how to think about it there. Now, in terms of document 1, if you just go back to that, so how a mark scheme will generally look, if obviously those who've marked before or those who've been in the teaching game a long time will recognize this document. You've got 4 levels at the side. The levels or the strands, they might be called 1 to 4, indicate the increase in marks. And you can see there we've got our straightforward descriptors to the right-hand side, and in between the descriptor and the level, you've got the amount of marks. So strand 1 or level 1 is between 1 to 6 marks out of 25. Strand 2 is 7 to 12 marks out of 25. Strand 3 is 13 to 18 marks out of 25. And then strand 4 is 19 to 25 out of 25. Now, the way to then think about this is between each strand, and if you look on the screen now, we've got the strong, moderate, and weak. Now, the way I've always thought of it, and the way examiners sometimes like to think about it, let's say a student writes a level 3 response for this answer. Okay, so we'd be looking for something along the lines of that. They show some understanding and analysis of the issue raised by the question. The knowledge is included to demonstrate some understanding of the issues. Attempts are made to establish criteria for judgment on the view and relate to the overall judgment. Now, that overall judgment could be throughout, but if it's level 3, it's likely just kind of, can sometimes just be at the end. It's like the classic conclusion paragraph at the end of the essay. Now, what we'd then be looking at is splitting that strand into kind of weak, moderate, or strong. So almost split each of those into 3. So you've kind of got an array of marks there to award. So 13 to 14 marks would probably be a weak level 3 response, sorry. 15 to 16 marks would be kind of that moderate, mid-level response for a level 3 answer. And then obviously 17 to 18 will be a high level 3 response. And that is where, when you're marking, obviously you'd probably be then going, oh, it's definitely level 3. Is there anything for level 4? And kind of going through that and looking for, kind of get into a weak level 4 response. And hopefully where we go through this answer, sorry, you'll kind of see how. So kind of what I've provided here is just, not for this question, but for the ones moving forward, is a way to kind of look at it. Now, I know obviously if you're on the computer, it's hard to do, so maybe to have a little notepad at your side and just kind of jot down. But if you look at the document itself and just quickly move beyond the answer, you'll see at the bottom of every answer, I'll put this image on: strong, moderate, weak. It could be for you to circle, highlight, however you want to do it. And then there's a little table after that as part of each answer document to say the mark I would give, or you can change that to strand or level if you're unsure about the exact mark, the reasons for chosen mark and actual marks, and additional notes that you may have from the discussion. Okay. And it's just a way, even if you don't have this printed out, it's a way that you can download, you can take forward, and maybe when you're doing some CPD in departments, in schools, in centres, should you choose to take this Pearson International A level, then it's maybe a good way to look at it and just think as a team, as a group of teachers, right, what would the mark be here? Because again, not everyone's the same kind of like when they look at a response as well. Okay. So please don't look at document 3 yet, because that is the examiner's report. So don't kind of zoom ahead and kind of think, oh, well, I know what's going to come here. So you can see as well that these are big answers, and I didn't want to just put that on the PowerPoint either, so I've just provided an extract for you. But if we go back to the question, the impact of the King's flight to France was the main reason why France became a republic in 1792. So even without knowledge, I think if you've skimmed through it already, you can kind of see where the strengths are in this answer in terms of how the student has written it, how they've approached with support and knowledge, the flow of the answer. Oh, apparently I can annotate. So 2 seconds, right. Yeah. Right, so sorry, I was just testing that word. Right, so the flight of France was a result of King Louis's objection to the civil constitution of clergy created in 1790 and the death of his fellow monarchist Mirabeau. Okay, so immediately the classic introduction to a paragraph, a clear point, referring back to the question, and you know, it's then demonstrating that the student is going to kind of elaborate on the flight of France and then support or challenge. So the flight was seen by the people as an act that proved that King Louis himself opposed the idea of constitutional monarchy, and he was therefore seen as an enemy of the revolution by the Cordeliers. Okay, so again, that would be kind of the classic AO1. Apologies, I'm left-handed. I'm using my right for my mouse. That would be kind of your classic AO1. Now immediately going right. That is worth a little tick there in terms of the knowledge provided. And then when I'm looking at the AO3, if I change colour, no, it's not. There we go. Wrong one. Sorry. If I go to a green, sorry. This resulted in calls for application that therefore threatened the existence of constitutional monarchy and foreshadowed the creation of the new republic. To add on to this, the Cordeliers as advocated the crowds into an uprising. The flight to France thus created fear of counter-revolution, resulted in the Champ de Mars in 1791 that escalated into violence very quickly. Okay, so you've got some AO3 that is seeping into there, but we need a bit more clear, I suppose, in terms of this paragraph, probably linking back to that statement a bit more. Now, where this really kicks in is probably around here. And again, it's that classic looking for those statements, those pinpoints in a question where the student is trying to demonstrate either support or challenge for a viewpoint to then back up with their knowledge. So one could argue that because after the Champ de Mars, there were restrictions of the press, and many radicals such as Marat, Desmoulins and Danton went into hiding. The moderates had in fact won. To add to this, even after the flight of France in the Legislative Assembly, the Feuillants, apologies for my pronunciation here, won the majority of seats, highlighting that there was still hope for constitutional monarchy, making the flight of France not the main reason for France becoming a republic. So there as well, kind of this section here and this one at the end is where that AO3 probably at this stage, you'd maybe say, okay, maybe it's around the level 3 for what we're looking at if you go onto your document and kind of see there, because obviously there's knowledge is quite clear. You'd maybe even say the knowledge is in level 4 quite comfortably, but obviously that AO3 is what weighs heavier. So you're going to be looking for that constant link back, that constant almost challenge or support of it. Okay. So I'll give you a minute or so to just read over the full answer. Please don't go into the examiner's report, and then what I'll do is I'll just go through that examiner's report with you because that's a useful what's the word, document to have as well, which is document 3, to kind of see what examiners say about this and what this kind of answer is. Okay. What I've also tried to do is when typing up these answers and stuff, and I had to type them all, was that I've tried to keep them as close as possible to how the student wrote it without too many kind of outside the commas and things like that, without too many punctuation corrections, that kind of thing. So just to keep it as accurate as possible for you as well, without kind of thinking, oh, this student writes amazingly well, there's no mistakes whatsoever. Okay, I've kept obviously keeping those in because you can kind of see that there's no penalization for that really either, unless like, even if a piece of knowledge is wrong, it's not penalized. It's just it doesn't reduce marks. It just kind of like it's not like, oh, this student was on 20 marks before they've said a completely wrong paragraph. It's like it doesn't then remove 5 marks. It doesn't work like that. So don't think of it like that if you see anything that you know is wrong. It's just about what at the end of the answer, what is that consistency that they've achieved. Okay, so I'll give you just a couple of minutes to breeze through that, and then I'll come to these questions, Madeline, as well. Okay. And if anyone wants to type in where they think this will be in the level, that'd be nice as well. Sorry, whilst you do that, I'll just answer Patricia's question. So what I was saying, Patricia, is let's say a student's written an absolute, what you think is a really strong level 4 answer, and you maybe put it in around, let's just say, sorry, maybe it's like around 19, 20 marks, but then there comes to like a final paragraph where they're reasoning or creating an argument against a viewpoint, and you feel like the knowledge isn't strong enough, there's the incorrect knowledge, are getting confused. That does not mean that, oh, they've got that wrong, remove marks. It's just kind of like if you're confident that they fit criteria even before that, it still would be a 19 to 20 marks, because obviously you're then looking at kind of like, well, I've got 3 or 4 clear reasons here, either in support or against, and actually, just because I've got one which doesn't really work, it doesn't hamper the overall, judgment that they provide, because the judgment relates to the other point. It's not about, don't think that examiners go into it looking to remove marks. I think that was obviously my point, and that's kind of how I mark in terms of GCSE and A level. It's across the board. It's got to be marking positively, and that's what I used to say to my department as well. When as a head of department, it was kind of like mark positively. Kind of obviously don't just give away marks, but as in if the pupil or student is doing what you want to do from the mark scheme, then kind of then there's no reason not to say, well, it's definitely in the level. Start off at a level, and then from the levels we go into the actual like specific mark. So just have a breeze through that. Again, if there's any spelling mistakes, if there's anything punctuation wise doesn't make sense, don't worry about that. That is simply just from an exam written answer in a timed managed condition as well. Sorry, Madeline, I'm just looking at your question now. Yes. Sorry, Madeline. If everyone got confused there, why I said yes. So that obviously it's kind of like, as you said there, you've given the example of treaty of assigned Germany. So if I'm looking for that valid criteria by which the view can be judged, okay, so it could be, as you've said there, Um, different clauses. It could be on politics, as you say, the economy. It could be on the military side. It could be on like the society side. It could be like think off the top of my head the impact of the reducing the military to 100,000 men, for example. But that specific, okay, that specific like piece of knowledge, as in instead of just kind of giving the vague response, well, the economy was affected, X, Y, and Z, or wasn't as affected as much, or however they might argue it, it will be have to be a specific point of that. So obviously, you're then looking at economically wise, I'd probably be talking about reparation payments. And then that would then link into the kind of impact on society, people have no money, that kind of thing, going into that specifics there. And that's what I would be saying is establish that in the first sentence, or at least the first two of any paragraph that they write related to the question. Establish that specific, and then it just keeps a student, for example, if they haven't done a plan or anything like that before, it keeps them having something they can go back to. And all right, I'm writing about reparations, I'm writing about I'm writing about the social impacts here. And then even if, let's say, student runs out of time, there's elements in that answer which the judgment wise, if you look at that level 4 part there, evaluations may only be partly substantiated. So if there's a super strong answer, and let's say, oh, they've ran out of time to write a conclusion, for example, but throughout that answer, they're relating to that point. And then obviously, if it's kind of like the paragraph on your screen, you see that latter third of the paragraph, it kind of provides an element of judgment, which would maybe creep it into a low level 4 response. Again, it's all dependent on what AO1 is supporting and linked into the AO3 and how the analysis of the impact is everything. But subjectively, that so we've got some saying very strong answer, 22 to 25, level 4. Any other thoughts that we just want to quickly type in, even if you just write in a level or mark, just so I can kind of gauge. Don't worry, there's no judgment here either. If you know, yeah, level 4, level 4. Thank you, Leslie. Jonathan. Um, to be honest, yes, getting that conclusion is important because it shows the examiner that they're able to bring everything together to provide that overall judgment at the end. Um, to be honest, speaking metaphorically here, sports wise, sorry if you're not a fan of sports, but it's kind of like, it's looking at a series of results. You might be able to guess the team I support here, which have been really inconsistent, and eventually it leads to, the judgment at the end of the season isn't strong enough. But there's parts which are great and there's parts which are not so. But that final bit when you look at the end of the season, oh well, that team's finished 8th or 9th or whatever, is actually that if that conclusion isn't strong enough, then that certain team hasn't done as well as they should have done. Or so that's kind of like, so it's all about like that to get that final, like if you want to say the top level of level 4, you want to be looking at the conclusion there to kind of almost just nail it on. Okay, like I said, with team wise. No, no. It begins with an M and ends in United. So it's and we know what, if you're paying any close attention, we kind of see where they're going at the minute. So what I'll quickly do is and that is always something, I suppose. I can see a lot of low fours coming in, so I'll go over that now. Some students who I used to teach kind of like think about ways you can explain kind of breaking down. There's the different barriers you can break down with them about that, just to kind of say, well, if we look at it in this sense, not necessarily sport, it could be anything. It could be I can't think of anything other than sport now, but kind of like I used to use that just to kind of help them understand what I was looking for, because sometimes you put a marks game in front of pupils or students and it's like, whoa, there's a lot there. Even for us to kind of look and you're like, you're dissecting every bit and there's a lot. So just think about what you're wanting. What is that final push you want from them? How would you then refer to that? So just if you all look at document 3 now, we've all come in at obviously level 4. We're all saying, like, some have said low, some have said kind of mid. So this would be the this is a low level 4 response. Okay. So just you again, you've got that full examiner's report there. I'm not going to read it out for you. I'll just take out some key points. Now, um, in terms of where it says strand, I don't know where strand four's disappeared to, but it is a weak level 4. So strand 1, the key issues are relevant to the question and are explored by analysing and exploring issues of the interpretation raised by the claim above. So another point to point out, and there was no way to include this, to be honest, in your documents. This answer did have a plan before it, so it's and you can see there the examiner says time allocated to each response is 1 hour, which should provide sufficient time for candidates to plan a response. So that is basically the examiner saying make a little 5-minute plan. As a speaking from experience, when I was at college or sixth form, in my first year, I remember I went in, had the mini panic that you do when you kind of start writing straight away, and actually it wasn't my best, like in terms of my ability, it wasn't my best performance because I didn't take that 5-minute spell to kind of just take back, relax, right, this is the points I want to do. So obviously time management can be scary for some students, but kind of encourage them to take that moment, annotate around the question, because examiners aren't going in and saying, oh, all my days they've scribbled all over the question, that kind of thing. As long as the answer is not illegible, sorry, as long as the answer is legible, then we can see the plan as well. And we can see, oh, actually, this student is trying to organize it that way. So the key issues related to the view presented in the question are addressed and explored from the opening paragraph of the response. The response refers to the given factor, the impact of the King's flight to France, and begins to discuss its importance in relation to other key issues. The impact of France being at war and failure of the Constitutional Assembly. So if I go back to the question we had in the group from Madeline about should they be relating to specific points? Absolutely, yes, in terms of and then if you can link it, because then it's a balancing act, isn't it? If you could see me on camera, I'm kind of doing a balancing motion with my hand. So that's how to think of it as well. Again, these are skills that they will have from GCSE, international GCSE, sorry, or GCSE. So the idea of balancing an answer, using these words like attacking the statement, that kind of thing. So if we just go towards the bottom of this, and this is kind of those asking about the conclusion. In the concluding paragraph, the response returns to the 3 factors identified as making causal contributions to the creation of the Republic. The extent to which both the monarchy was undermined and the people were affected are used to establish criteria for judgment. The focus is on the fall of the constitutional monarchy rather than the creation of the Republic, but the two are clearly interlinked. The relative importance is not clearly established, but a hierarchy of importance is made clear, and the interrelationship between the causal factors is established. So what they're kind of saying there is that obviously the student has taken a line to say, look, the focus of this judgment is on the fall of the constitutional monarchy rather than the creation of the Republic, but there is that interlink there. Now, you can see what would make that weak is the fact that it's the relative importance is not clearly established. So they haven't done enough, let's say, or consistently enough. Again, speaking in sporting terms, like a certain team I support, they haven't done enough consistently well to establish that strong finish. And again, we're talking a mark here that would get them into mid. So we're talking something that was about 20 marks that needed just that little extra sentence, which probably will not only be 1 but 2, and push them up to 22. Okay, so it's small margins again, especially when you get to when you're talking about strand 4. Okay, so again, don't worry if you're unsure about the French Revolution and stuff like that. It's not about the knowledge here. It is about knowledge. What I mean, it's not about you knowing the knowledge. It's just about looking at how these answers are written. Now, so that's kind of like Unit 1, Paper 1 done, because they'd be answering 2 questions like that, and hopefully those examiner reports and kind of like what we've done there is actually quite helpful for you. Could you move on to document 4, please, which it should be titled Mark Scheme for Unit 2, Section 8, Q, Question 1A. Okay. So how do I 2 seconds. I'll just remove these annotations because. Right. So, last thing I wanted to go over quickly whilst you're jumping ahead to the next mark scheme is just this is a good thing to think about. I tried to categorize it as straightforward as possible, again, not to overburden. Strong responses, the answers go beyond the stimulus points provided or like, what's mentioned in that statement. Analytical answers provided with support and contextual knowledge. So again, that analysis will be linking more into AO3, the support and contextual knowledge is that AO1. The judgment provided, which is not just repetition. Now, writing conclusions and writing judgments is one of probably the hardest tasks for students to do. It's because from GCSE to A level, they will sometimes say, "Well, I've kind of addressed it," and it's not. But then they sometimes will have read the countless times like where basically a paragraph is repeated, and a point is repeated. And actually, if you look at the examiner's report, that kind of outlines what we're looking for in terms of you almost establish a hierarchy of reasons, looking at it like that balance, which is the most important reason, which is the most significant reason for why something happened or what, to challenge the support the response. Weaker responses, obviously not concentrating the answer on the key point of the question. Irene, it is the delegate booklet, which should be in on your Zoom meeting. There should be a button which says resources. I can't post a link to it because it should already be there from Pearson. If you're using the Zoom app on your laptop or tablet, apparently it's easier to view via that. And then it takes you through all of kind of these documents and full answers rather, because all I've got on the PowerPoint are small segments. So weak responses, not concentrating the answer on key point of the question, fail to understand the point of the question, fail to appreciate that there is an alternative view. So if a student just writes in support or even just all against, it's kind of like, well, you've got to find that evidence to really challenge or support whatever way around it is. And again, going back to module 1, when I was talking about, brainwork, the different tasks of student debates, hot seating, putting students in a position where, what I mean when I say they're not necessarily comfortable, they're not comfortable with like that argument. So they think they're knowledge support. The other one say, right, okay, student A, you're going to support the complete opposite argument. I want you to find the evidence. How would you argue that? Because actually that's a really high level, the high level skill to achieve. Okay, so that's maybe a way around this, and actually then at the end of doing something like that, you could be like, oh well, this is with that, you should then take this forward, and I want to see you refer to that in your answer, especially if, like, let's say you do a round of answers as homework or as a class assessment, and you get them back, and it's like, oh, actually, a lot of students are just into that top of a level 2, well, just within a level 2, sorry, answer because they haven't addressed enough of the other side. And then you adapt, you say, right, I'm going to do this student debate, I'm going to put students A, B, C, and D on one side of the argument because I know they completely like disagreed with this side, but they wouldn't show it because that kind of thing. So it helps inform that kind of thing. So 2 seconds. I don't know why it's doing this. It's an issue. So jumping on to paper 2, I'm just trying to keep ahead of time. I might quickly, I'll give us a decent break because there's a lot to go through here. But paper 2, remember, is split into 2 parts. Okay, so question 1 and 1B I've got on the screen for you now. So these are compulsory. AO2, fully looking at sources. So why is source 1 valuable to the historian for an inquiry into the reaction of the British government to the Indian famine of 1876-78? And then 1B, how much weight do you give the evidence of source 2 for an inquiry into the impact of Gorbachev's reduction of traditional controls in the late 1980s? Now, again, I haven't included the sources in the booklet, your delegate booklet, just because we're not focusing on, or we need to look at the sources, just look at the language, look at how the student's written it. Again, even with as teachers, you're all able to quickly gauge kind of looking at it. So again, for question 1A, and I'll just leave you with section A for about just under 10 minutes to kind of go through them both without kind of zooming ahead. Don't ignore the examiner's report as best you can. So you've got the mark scheme for instant document 4 for question 1A, and that is obviously out of 10 marks, and you've only got 3 strands there. And then document 5 is the document 5 is the response. Now make of the length of it what you will without looking at judgment, that kind of thing. And then unit 2, question B for section A is out of 15 marks, and that has 4 strands. So what I'd recommend, tell you what, we'll do it in 2 sections. We'll do take a couple of minutes now, because that's all you'll need, to read over document 5, and then just again type away for me again like we did before, because I think that's probably the quickest and easiest way to do this, because we've got a lot to go through. What you think this answer would get on the scale of levels 1 to 3, and maybe jot down some notes for yourself. So just a couple of minutes. Don't worry about needing sources or anything like that. Access emails, invite. Please send them on. Oh no. Nash.
Hi, Liam.
Hi Nash. There you've responded for me. Thank you. It was
Yeah.
just about Martin's question, but thank you. See, Maxwell's put what they think the answer would be. Thank you. Yeah. Right. Thank you for responding there. Sorry, Martin. Nash is just asking if your colleague can try and join now as well. Thank you. Yeah. So a lot of you, again, more or less spot on there about level 1 to level 2. If you just again do the cheating thing now and look at the examiner's report, you can see this is considered level 1 generic. So this will be given no more than 3. It was possibly only given 2. Because if it was going to be a high level one, it would have probably said. But again, if an examiner put 3 down, it probably stays 3. If it was given 2, again, so it is quite generic. So you can just see there for the examiner's commentary, the answer suffers from a lack of attention to the content of the source. Now, without providing the source, you can see that how many times does it quote it very lightly? Impossible. It states that it would be impossible to save every life, and also addresses the famine commissioners. Does it? Like, and that, like, speaking cynically, it's that, like, it also addresses the when students paraphrase sources and then don't go on to like expand or explain it, they really hinder what marks they can achieve. And because it's not necessarily sticking to the question, um, you know, it just, again, in terms of strength, it stays in level one. So there's nothing in the way of use of relevant contextual knowledge to reward it. Okay, so it's kind of like, obviously we've got a student here who perhaps hasn't perhaps revised, has maybe he's had a bit of a bad day in the exam and has got a bit unsure about what the question is really wanting. In terms of direct comment on the source's value, the answer does note that Napier had experience in India, but attempts to evaluate are assertive and stereotypical, stating simply that his reaction to the famine was coloured by being British rather than Indian. So there's nothing, there's no further point. There's like, it takes a, perhaps see it as taking like a standard view of what it talks about Napier there in the answer, but then it's kind of doesn't elaborate any further. So you can see, and again, source questions that they are difficult answers to write for students. So it's the question does require candidates to consider how the source is useful. Attempts to consider limitations are not rewarded. I mean, again, if you look, it's kind of like because it says it's the source is extremely valuable to an historian, but it doesn't. It's fair enough putting that in, and then it's like, right, okay, you can give some recognition at level one for that, but then it's like how. Um, so if we, you're probably looking around. If we're looking at paragraphs, then lengthwise, I'd rather talk in paragraphs than talk kind of like, I don't want to say page of A4 or whatever, but kind of like you're looking at like at least a strong paragraph of support of how the source is supported or challenged, and then vice versa, and then like you want you know that kind of way, because it is only 10 marks, so you kind of like it's valuable in this way and it's valuable in this way as well. Limit, because the question's only asking why is source valuable to the historian, so it's you can still say it's valuable because it doesn't show X, Y, and Z, and that's what they need to be doing, kind of like looking at it from that point of view, because actually it shows that then further. Um, so to what I've tried to demonstrate, what candidates need for a level of response, demonstrate and understand the source material and show some analysis by selecting key points relevant to the question. So they've started to do that, but the quotes, the paraphrasing isn't specific enough to support and show that valuableness, not even word, how valuable source is. Okay. Um, Truth be told, you'd probably be better looking at not an intro. I think on this one, Madeline, the intro kind of comes from, again, that they've kind of took there's his source one is valuable to the story for an inquiry. The rewording the question there, and actually it could take it's speaking in time limitations. If you've got a student who is very time conscious, or needs to be time conscious, that's not necessarily the way to go. You know, talk about the provenance, talk about like what it actually is in that first paragraph, and then you build on that, and then your second paragraph and your third paragraph perhaps are then taking out the more key specific parts of the quotes, the if they do end up paraphrasing, then like linking it in that way rather than like worrying about that. And then a conclusion, although not necessary, just a small one at the end, just to kind of bring it forward and maybe then link it back to the question. But it's that balancing act of, don't just reword the question for rewording the question's sake to get something on paper, because you can reword the question, but as an examiner, you can't award marks for it, because unfortunately it's like, well, yeah, because the question's asking about valuable, don't just write source one is valuable, give me a specific reason. Okay. So moving on to, yes. Yeah, yeah. I would often say around three. Again, that's advice. That is not concrete. That is not what like is any written on any document. It's dependent on you, but in using the mark scheme. But if you look at the amount of marks available, and again, this is where obviously A level say changes from, let's say, GCSE, where like you'll have questions which might be worth 4 marks and it's like one paragraph, but it's not like 4 marks per paragraph. You're looking to achieve it's that consistency through the year or two. So bare minimum of two to at least get you into, probably it might push you into the low level three, but that third one where it's like, let's say you start off by looking at what the by looking at the valuable how valuable it is in terms of what the source is, who's written it, or who said it, whatever it might be, and then like that's why, and then bringing in the contextual knowledge to support that, and then using two paragraphs to take out one or two key specific points in those paragraphs, if that makes sense. So taking the source and being like, right, this is where it talks about the viceroy, kind of like the viceroy's reaction to the famine, being, you know, quite dismissive. Take that part of the source and then say this is why it's valuable, and then supporting it with knowledge. And then again, taking the second point for that third paragraph perhaps and being like, right, this is why it's valuable, and then support it with knowledge. Okay. Yes, Lucy, yeah. Okay. And you can see that in the exams report as well, because it says how it's not going to be awarded. The question's not looking for that. So attempts to consider limitations are not rewarded. So that's really, like, again, you've raised an important point there, Lucy, in terms of just remind everyone attempts to consider limitations are not rewarded. Okay. Um, So if we can look at document 7 for section 8, question 1B. And again, if we take the similar approach, so different topic this time. Again, some we might be familiar, some we might not be. I'm not, the source aren't provided, but the thing to look out on here, obviously, question 1A is looking at source 1. So whatever source 1 is provided, that's linked to 1A of section A. And source 2 will be linked to question 1B. It's only in the unit 3, when you get into that the second year of the year level, for example, where the question will be looking at sources 1 and 2 together. Okay. So how much weight do you give the evidence of source 2 for an inquiry into the impact of Gorbachev's reductions to traditional controls in the late 1880s? And again, you've got 4 strands here. Have a quick look over this one and then do exactly the same as just write in quickly what you think the level would be for this response. Just because I'm conscious of the time as well. Obviously, the speaking ahead to section B of this paper is that's a 25 marker, a bit like, in terms of looking at the AO1 side and a student writing that answer. I'm going to leave that one in um sorry, for today to go through, because obviously we went through for paper one. I'm very conscious of, we obviously want to get onto units 3 and 4 and look at like those ones, and I'm quite conscious that obviously we've had quite a good discussion here over the chat about the source questions. So for that one, we'll skip past that. But obviously, whilst during the break, if you've got any questions about it, reading it, please have a read through, fill in some notes, that kind of thing. But obviously, I want to give you time for a break because it's a lot of information for is it Wednesday afternoon as well. Another minute, and then we'll go over this one. See, Patricia's dropped her thoughts in. Think about the question here. How much weight do you give the evidence? How much weight do you give the evidence? We all just double check. We all just double check mics are muted, please, as well, just to whilst we go through this. Yeah. What do I think? A very good question, Irene. And during my break, I'm going to have a look and let me come back to that for you. Okay, even if it's towards the end, because it's structure-wise, it's again, it was the same. I think it's a consistent aspect across source written questions, is that structure and how to approach them, because I think a lot of teachers also approach it very differently. If anyone in the chat obviously in this has something that they find successful for source writing, that's beyond like what Pearson offers and things like that, then by all means reach out to each other, because that could be helpful as well as good networking. Right, so thank you. Now again, if I'm looking there, we're saying level 2, low 2, level 2, level 2, level 2, possibly a week 3. Now, for those who've responded, we can see if you just go down to, I'm getting lost off here, the document 9, the examiner's commentary on this. Okay, this is a level 2 answer, probably at the top of a level 2, but there's, because of one certain factor, really, it starts to limit itself. And to be honest, it's because of partly because of the candidate's understanding of the concept of weight in the question. So the question asks for how much weight do you give the evidence of source 2 for an inquiry into the impact of Gorbachev's reduction, etc., etc. So you complete as an examiner, there's little reference to an extent to weight, and what we're looking for here in this question, weight is relating to the candidate's judgment. Rather than here where it's just being placed on the evidence equated to a key aspect of the source content, like a quote, so that's where this candidate's probably kept themselves in level 2, because actually there's some understanding there that would probably, if the understanding of weight would create them into level 3. The contextual knowledge is used, it's expanding and confirming matters of detail with regard to the evidence of the source of inquiry. The answer notes that an American perspective on Russia's internal affairs may impact on its veracity, but overall its judgments are based on questionable assumptions. So that lack of understanding around weight and then bringing in assumptions, and the assumptions might come from, let's say, because they've used inferences and they've made some inferences, the inferences sometimes can lead to assumptions. So that's maybe something to look out for. And when teaching, don't let their inferences or like suggestions from a source lead to assumptions. Like we all know you when in history there can't be any assumption. When we're looking back, you're looking for it's like anything. If you just a simple explain, you're looking for that key specific reason why student A thinks one thing, student B might think another. So it's that same thing. So there are assumptions in this answer and the lack of understanding over that terminology. Now again, it's maybe worth on this sense when you get questions or source questions like this. Is to have like a word diary, like something sort of question. If a student is asked, how much weight do you give the evidence? Well, what do you mean by weight? Like, do you mean support? Do you mean how much further evidence? What is kind of feared that because if you want the judgment of its reliability, okay, then weight/reliability, and just so they've got a plethora of different. I say plethora, don't give them too many, but like this is what this can mean for them, okay. And even if on the answer again they see the word weight, circle it right above it, a different word for them, and it just helps them because again, we're not necessarily looking for weight to be said as a word throughout it, as long as they come up with a different piece of terminology, which basically equates to how much reliance can be given to the evidence of source two, or how reliable it is. So it's it's a tricky question because of the wording, I think, and I think maybe the candidates. It's an answer that in many aspects, in partly is getting there. It's there's a lot to work with, and there's not one way you go, oh, this candidate is miles off it. It's one way you can think, oh, well, actually, this tweaks here, this changes here, and this here. Um, so again, I think for sources, it was quite important to me to put on probably two kind of weak, like what we considered weak level one, like a mid level two or top level two at least, just because um you can see like how even if a candidate is trying it can kind of go array because of like again in this sense you look the understanding of weight and bringing in assumptions rather than clear facts to support. So looking at the time now, we've been on just over an hour. I'm thinking a break and then getting you back here in just under 10 minutes time because we've got kind of unit 3 and 4 to go through, which is some kind of like obviously we want to go through a few more big answers. Um, Now again, if in that break you want to have a look at document 11, which is for section B, question 2, and that is just put it on the screen now. So the question was, how accurate is it to say that the completion of the Long March was the most important reason for the survival of communism in China in the years 27 to 45, 25 marks? This is fully year one, just candidates providing evidence, providing different reasons, and then coming on to that point of how accurate is it? Okay, so is it just to complete a Long March, which is an important reason? What other reasons are there? Okay, so this is kind of very much a standard, what I would call a classic history essay. Just have a read over when you go and quickly get a cup of tea. And you can see it's quite a lengthy one. It's nearly at 2 pages of typed, so this is quite a big response. Again, they've got an hour for this. Have a think what you will give it. If you want, obviously, then look ahead to what the examiner's report says, by all means. Okay, we're talking about something, spoilers, that is well organised, considered logical and clear. So I'll leave that to you, and then when we come back after break time, we're going to be looking at unit 3. So just under 10 minutes for a break. I'm just having a read through the chat there, guys. And I'm just seeing the Maxwell structure there. I quite like that QSE. It's straightforward. It's no, that is a solid way. I mean, in terms of how I was talking there, source A is useful because of like reliable or has weight because of that's it. Instead of it's in terms of what marks are there, rewording the question is definitely not worth it at the beginning. It's just like get straight into it. And again, that comes from someone who was a waffler when it came to writing essays when he first started out. So it's definitely something to think about that one. So that's a good bit of network, and thank you for that, Maxwell. That's really good. Couple more minutes, and then we'll get started again. Again, everyone, Martin, I've just responded to you there. I mean, it's the age-old question with source questions, isn't it? I mean, what I'd be looking at, obviously, section A is kind of like looking at section A, section B, an hour for each. But I'd be looking at maybe for 1A in terms of it's 10 marks, 20 minutes. You probably, um, you know, the classic 2 minutes a mark if you want to think of it like that or anything. Is my maths good there? Yes. Yes. And then kind of like around that 30 minutes for 1B, that you've got kind of 10 minutes spare, but obviously students need to read the sources, use the sources, that kind of thing. So you might want 5 minutes either side for the questions. And then if they've written, if they feel comfortable, that gives them extra for the essay and stuff like that. So again, it's kind of that kind of equate the marks and look at what the questions want. But I would say that's probably around right. Again, some students might want a little bit longer on each. They might say I'm doing, but if it being 10 marks, you want no more than 20, 25, and then you want at least half. You want the 30 minutes for that 1B, I think. If that makes sense. Again, timings for the smaller questions can be a bit subjective. So sometimes teachers go into, how many marks per minute, that kind of thing. But it's for you in terms of teaching it, I think it's probably 20, 30, and then you've kind of got that area to look at the sources. Patricia, SEN at IGCSE, obviously that is dependent on the school and such like that, but there will be extra time available, yes. That kind of thing. So extra time wise, that then goes off. Not entirely sure because that's not necessarily my remit there, but the amount of extra time that'll be given, then that is for obviously your school, the centre to kind of like then support in that sense. And kind of say, oh well, student A needs you can have this amount of time on, if that makes sense. Right, okay, so where are we up to? The paper 3, lovely. Now, this is obviously the thematic study with source evaluation. So sticking on that theme of sources, if we can go to document 13, please. And this is where things change up a smidge. So you've had a separate question on source 1, you've had a separate question on source 2. Let's amalgamate the two and put them all together, and let's look at sources 1 and 2. So how far could the historian make use of sources 1 and 2 together to investigate the reasons for Barack Obama's victory in the 2008 presidential election? Explain your answer using both sources, the information given about them, and your own knowledge of the historical context. So if we have a quick look at the mark scheme, some of you might be already jumping ahead to the question to kind of gauge the what needs to be written and stuff like that. That's fine, but up to you've got 5 strands, which for this one you might be surprised, but it's obviously the sources questions are different to the other 25 mark, like which are just AO1 and sorry, possibly AO3. So 5 strands. That's strand 4 and 5. Those of you looking how to achieve get students at the top marks, okay? They need to be interrogating the evidence of both sources with confidence and discrimination, making reasoned inferences and showing a range of ways the material can be used. For example, by distinguishing between information and claim or opinion, deploying knowledge of historical context with precision to illuminate. So again, super tight with knowledge, super tight with the sources, super tight with kind of addressing sources where they're confident with them, where there's areas of discrepancies, that kind of thing. And the evaluation is fully applied. So have a look at document 14, have a read through that, and let me know in a few minutes what you think in the chat. Sorry, and yes, Martin, yes. So sorry, respond to you, Irene, now. Is this question 1 on paper 2? Thank you. So, right. Sorry, I didn't mean to press enter. Obviously, reiterate to students the importance of reading the sources before they start writing. I know that might come as a given, but I'm sure we know some that will immediately charge in, and actually the amount of times like we will have probably told students to take your time, don't rush in, don't worry about don't concern yourself with what other people in the exam hall are doing, when it comes to writing your answer. But you know the exam conditions and everything. So taking that time, um, I would imagine. I mean, centres and schools probably will provide a highlight as well, or students will be able to take them in a clear pencil case. So having that or underline and just tell them it's okay to use the source booklet as a annotation, even if they write the plan on there and anything, it's fine. Um, for the minute, just quickly type in what you think. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing the responses start to filter in now. It's an interesting one because if you're someone who kind of looks at answers in terms of length and you think at 25 marks, you're thinking, because there's a lot it does right, in terms of if we think about how it integrates sources 1 and 2 together, it's quite comfortable to at, let's say, um, it's obviously the candidate's quite comfortable at talking about source 1 in comparison to source 2 in comparison to source 1. But yes, also we're saying level 4, absolutely. And it got around, I want to say 18 to 19, I think. So it was just off, it's kind of your mid-level 4 range now. The reasons for that, and if you look at the exams report, it's actually it's almost quite a glowing report in aspects of it. So the strength of the response are its understandings of the issues raised in both sources and its deployment of well-selected knowledge to illuminate what can be gained from the content of the source material. There's also some understanding of the need to interpret the sources in the context of contemporary concerns. This is demonstrated in paragraph 2 when exploring the part played by Obama's personality and race, reasoning from source 1 that he was not tainted by association with the divisiveness of the civil rights movement and was able to reach out to white Americans. Okay, so when you read through the answer, there's a lot of moments where the the elements from sources 1 and 2 are selected specifically because the knowledge supports them, and in vice versa, that supports the knowledge or the challenge. Whereas like some answers will pick a quote, I suppose the previous ones on Unit 2, and they struggle to use that. It leads to assumptions, it then leads to poor inferences, and it leads to a lack of knowledge around that. So actually here you've got someone who's obviously worked hard, there's a lot of key knowledge about and kind of like has a strong understanding. So that's work there. Now, in terms of there's also a clear attempt to use the sources together. I think that's clear from the first paragraph. So, for example, in the first paragraph, the candidate notes how source 2 complements source 1 by showing how McCain's failures impacted on Obama's strength to create a democratic victory. That is where those to basically push yourself into level 4, or like the top of the level 3, there has to be some sort of attempt at integrating, comparing, and using sources 1 and 2 together. It can't just be, well, I'm going to write a paragraph or 2 on source 1 and then sources 2. It's got to be that interchange between them. Okay, because again, the key point of the question is sources 1 and 2 together. So, it's not just about reminding candidates. Sorry, I'll start again. Remind the candidates that they've got to be using the sources together, even if perhaps they maybe go, oh, well, I want a little introduction to start off just looking at like source 1 or source 2, and then my paragraphs will talk about 1 and 2 together. So that's the way forward with it. Don't keep them separate, because the limitations might even not even get them out of a level 2 response, and that would be a shame, especially if it's like an examiner can see, well, they clearly understand source 1, they clearly understand source 2, but there's nothing to suggest that they are working them together. And I suppose really, when this answer is weaker, is in its consideration of the weight the sources will bear when considering their use to a specific inquiry. And I suppose, like, as you can see towards the end of the answer, I think it starts talking about it drifts away into explaining why Obama won. It's not developed a real consideration of kind of the weight of their evidence when coming to a judgment. So it's probably that judgment that this was delivered in a mock exam and you're like, right, 18, 19 marks. What is it that's going to get them to 20 to 25? Is that strong judgment conclusion at the end. And I think when you read it, that's what that answer needs. It's kind of like, we've talked about structure a lot here, but you can see just looking at that answer that it probably needs like a nice little, in many ways speaking, like almost stereotypically here, but like there needs to be a final piece to nail on that, a strong level 4 finish, or that getting into at least a low level 5. And it is a hard thing, but timing wise, you're looking at, obviously you've got 2 sources to read, you've got time to plan here is needed, okay, especially if you're looking at bringing sources 1 and 2 together. It's not one to wing it with, basically. and you've 25 marks. You've got the hour because the next question is obviously just like an essay as without sources or anything. So um, I'm really pleased actually, and the feedback will go back that obviously we're kind of hitting where the levels are. That's always good to see. It's and I know some of you are trying to put the marks in as well. It's more about obviously just if you're in the right level, you've done half the battle. It's then looking at it as low, mid, and high. So again, I'm conscious of time here. So if we go on to section B, question 2, and that is documents 16 to 17 and 18. This is where are we up to? So the influence of Southern Democrats was successful in preventing the advancement of civil rights in the years 1865 to 77 and 1933 to 45. How far do you agree with this statement? Explain your answer now. This is obviously, again, your classic history essay. You've got a statement to agree with. It's straightforward in how far do you agree, and I think a lot of students will feel comfortable with that. But this question also gives those two key date ranges, which are, like nearly 80 years apart. So there's a lot of time space between 2 years to compare here. And again, 25 marks, so an hour for this. So if you have a read over that, and then I'm not pressuring you to obviously to write in for everyone, but like if I give us like 5 minutes, obviously if you don't read every paragraph, that's fine. Just a few minutes to go over, and then let me know what you think of that without looking at document 18, please. Thanks, Martin. Let me. Very Madeline, yeah. Let me check that. Should be in episode unit. 3. 187. 2 seconds. Yes, sorry. Thank you for pointing that out, Madeline. If you end up just if you just look at, I mean, if you don't have to, but if you go to the link that I posted in the chat for the sample assessment materials, and if you go to page 188, the mark scheme, I don't know why that's not copied over, but there should be 5 tiers to the mark scheme in your document. So if you just go to that and maybe open that up for yourselves, you'll kind of understand why in a minute. Just so there should be 5 levels, and if I just put that alongside yours, where have we gone wrong here? So yeah, level 1 should be only 1 to 4 marks. Level 2 is 5 to 8 marks. Level 3 is 9 to 14. Level 4 is 15 to 20, and level 5 would be 21 to 25. So what I'll do is I'll just write those strands in here now for you all. Level 1 is 1 to 4. 2 is 5 to 8. Level 3. Apologies about this. Level 4 is 20. Level 5 is 125. Right, okay, so if you have a look-see at the examiner's report for me, you'll see that this is actually a level 5 response. It's mid-level 5, so it would be around 20, 23, 22 to 23. Probably for talking mid, probably 22. So it's again, a lot of you have pointed out that there's it's clearly detailed, it's consistent, the analysis is in reference to the question, the examiner's quite impressed, it's well organized, and it's obviously quite the knowledge is excellent. The mid-level 5 response sustains an analysis of the issue is key to the question throughout. Okay, so it's all about that consistency throughout. It maintains it. It considers both the different ways in which Southern Democrats were able to hinder the advancement of civil rights in both periods specified and the extent to which these attempts could be considered successful. Now, look at the language that the examiner's using here. The answer, sorry, a key feature of this answer is the confident deployment of knowledge. Okay, so sort of like that confidently providing that key knowledge, and confidence in knowledge comes from specific details. Okay, that's confidence in that answer, sorry, comes from the specific details. So that is again quite a strong one. And again, you can, if you give it a high level 4, and not want to go into a 5, what would think about why Dave, sorry, I'm saying Dave. Yeah, so hi Dave. why would you be considering that? If you just want to give me a quick response there, why would that still be a level four? Just in terms of that, because it's kind of got everything it has. And again, I think what the examiner's saying is if we look at that generic, if you go look to the bottom of the examiner's report there, you've got the key descriptors. So for a level five, and that's what it's hitting like mostly. So that's why it's getting that level five there. Okay, again, it's these answers, especially when they're written in exam conditions as well, and you might be thinking, oh, that could be written, but when it's written in exam conditions, well, a lot of that comes into the factor as well. So I think it's still not top, like I say, it's still not top mark. It's not like a 25 out of 25, but it's a very strong, solid answer. And if this candidate writes like that, and then let's say that candidate writes at that level for the rest of unit 3 and 4, then this should be a candidate who'd probably be looking at getting, if we think about the A star and how they achieve A stars because of unit 3 and 4, that's someone like that writing at this ability. So that's kind of like, I suppose you want to take away potentially an A star answer, because of kind of where it's at, or pushing towards that at least. So if you've got if that writing style and that confidence and that resonates with you for one of your students, then perhaps it's someone who you see and you think, that reminds me of X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm going to do to get them to that, like push them. Okay. So right, if we move on to unit 4 now, and again, conscious of the time, we might squeak over. Obviously, if people have to leave, that's fine. We'll try and get at least question section the first section A done of unit 4. Okay. So just some characteristics quickly. Strong responses for level 4 and 5. Judgment is assertive and not just repetition. Accurate and relevant information. You especially see the accurate and relevant information. Considers the impact of different viewpoints, offers evidence supporting and challenging other views in order to support their argument. Weaker responses, limited knowledge or simple and generalized answer given, insecure justification provided, no consistency with the answer. So, unit 4, paper 4, this is the final unit. We're almost there, guys. So, section A is the one question here. And again, this is bringing in extracts, or you might refer to them as interpretations. Again, it's just more of like looking at what your glancing thoughts are. So how far do you agree with the view that the Cold War policies of the USA in the years 45 to 53 were motivated by an ideological mission to defend liberty against forces of darkness? And what these questions will always do is tell the students what the extract is, exactly where the line of the extract is. Again, it's good to then go at the extract booklet, highlight, explain your answer using extracts 1 and 2 and your knowledge of the issues related to this controversy. Okay, so you've got your mark scheme again, 5 levels to this. Have a read over again. I'm not expecting it again, as for throughout, don't go through every line. Maybe it's like read a paragraph, move, skip one, and then a couple of minutes, just start putting your thoughts on what you think, and just look at how's this candidate, even without giving you the extracts, how are they integrating extracts, how are they using, how are they quoting, and that kind of thing. Okay, I'll just put on, there's an extract as well on the screen. Okay, so the usual, come back to you in a couple of minutes. Thanks, Dave. Hi, Madeline. The the mark scheme focuses on, obviously this question will be looking at extracts. Okay, so the extracts are mentioned in the mark scheme. Just obviously it's just we're not looking at source. So these would be extracts like from historians today. Okay, so I can see we're getting towards the end, and obviously thank you very much for reading a lot of answers and kind of quickly going through them, especially with within this time period. Now, a lot of us are putting this on level 4, and you are right. This is actually a let me scroll down. This was given the best fit judgment of mid-level 4. So sometimes you'll hear examiners talk about a phrase a best fit. Now, the reason for that is the response meets all the criteria for level 3 with level 4 qualities clearly shown in strands 1 and 2 and partially in strand 3. So overall, this leads to a best fit judgment at mid-level 4. And there are some strand qualities at level 5. So it kind of, in many ways, it's that idea what we call the best fit. You all right there in terms of level 4 that, some of you have commented on the judgment's not clear. Now, if you look at the examiner's report, one of the key takeouts from that is that their understanding of extract 1 and the support of extract 1 is actually exceptional. And the examiner even comments that there's elements of it that show level 5 qualities, such as the reference to the USSR's pursuit of expansionist policies, requiring the USA to defend liberty, but extract 2 is not approached with the same level of confidence. So in many ways, the approach to the extracts are like just in like level 4 territory here. So it's I suppose in many aspects, it's as long as the student is super confident with one and then like kind of it uses the second one, it'll probably push their answer towards level 4. Obviously, in the perfect world, it'd be you've got a perfect response to level extract 1, extract 2. But again, and that's where that obviously that balance comes in. And if it's like any of us, if we see something and we're super confident with that, and maybe it's not with the other, you're going to be drawn more towards that because that demonstrates more of what you know, and you can at least the candidate is comparing them, is bringing it in with it. But it is worth noting that there is no need for the candidate to state that the extracts are secondary sources, as this is not required of the AO3 skill being assessed. It is the view provided by the extract that it's been analysed and not its author or origin. So this, any confusion with looking at the author, the origin of where it comes from, is not what this answer is looking at. That is left solely to AO2 questions based on source analysis. So that's something, and that can be a misconception that creeps in. There's a lot of extracts and sources that can be handed out. Students can sometimes have a bit of confusion. And again, it's just being super clear, having a super clear way. It could be a knowledge organizer, it could be like I've seen bookmarks mentioned. It could be stickers on front of files. It could be you could be using electronic like apps and stuff like that, and like to hand out work and just sending out daily reminders. Um, so just being super clear what an extract is, what a source is. But again, really, it's um, super strong with extract one, and it's just not as confident with extract two. So that leads to the best fit, I suppose. And sometimes you get a best fit response. I think you could probably argue some of the answers above maybe we're leading to a best fit, and it again, this is why like exam questions go through a rigorous go through a marker that then obviously they're checked again, just to make sure that candidates are getting a super confident delivery as well. But hopefully, with this, you're seeing, the standard that it needs to be reached for those level 4, level 5, and again, to get into that level 5 strand or from a level 3 to a level 4, it's small tweaks. It really is, because a lot of, barring a couple of the source questions, or just one of them, really, the knowledge has been mostly there in a lot of the answers. It's just how it's deployed, how it's used, and the reason I've given a lot of like level 4 answers, especially in the essays, is to show you kind of how what a strong one looks like. What it might surprise you what's given a level 5, it might not. It might surprise you what's given a level 4, it might not. But that's what this is for. So hopefully you take a lot away from this document that's been provided. Now we've obviously got this document 22, but I'm very conscious of the time and what people put in, and that will have to go back to lessons and stuff. Just a quick run through of the next question again will be a choice, and it's how accurate is it to say the superpower relations between USA and USSR improved greatly during the years 62 to 79? Be an AO1 question. I'm going to leave this to you in your own time, as in after the meeting's finished, because we've looked at a couple of these ones already. And again, it's just something to see, and that would be in what response to that is. And if you go to the exams report, this would be considered like, again, a lot of its requirement of level 5. So you're looking at between that 21 to 25 marks. Again, probably sitting around 23. But take these away. Obviously, they're there to use. They're there to obviously adapt that. It could be a useful tool in departments. It could be something that you take extracts out of if you're teaching the topics. You might use the questions, you might use the model, you might use a model paragraph. Model paragraphs are always a great way to go over what's expected of students. There's loads of different ways, obviously depending on classes and everything, but that's another suggestion. Model paragraphs that I probably could have mentioned on Monday, actually. So support wise, again, we looked at this on Monday. You've got a list of free resources there that are accessible, sorry. And then I've linked it into the plan and teach and learn, and the exam prep, how that links in the results. So some key parameters: anyone who wants any more material or to look at anything to order in for schools or centres, look no further than the main Pearson International Advanced Level page here. You can download the specification. You can go in and look at actual samples, and that sample that I've sent into the group is the one from that page. If you want anything else to look at, any like recommended readings, then do that. Results Plus, a great free online was analyst tool for teachers. It provides great detailed breakdowns showing performance in Edexcel exams. You can identify topics, questions where the student could benefit from further learning, and it can be that it's obviously partly to inform your teaching strategies and approaches. You can benchmark your skills performance. It's not just a results pool. You can put mock exam results into it. And there's also Results Plus Direct, which, as far as I'm aware, I think then you can like access final grades, and you can sign up for free at that link. If not, you type in results plus Pearson and on Google on the search engine, sorry, and that should come up for you. You've got Exam Wizard as another tool, free tool for teachers. Questions tagged against unit. Now, again, this you might have another system for homework assignments, that kind of thing. That is absolutely fine. These are just recommended tools to use. You've got the access to scripts online portal, and excuse me, again, another free tool. Provides transparency to the marking process. It provides better understanding of marking before requests for inquiries about results are made. It's just another strong teaching aid. It's available instantly from results day. You've got Pearson published resources. Again, just giving the same example as Monday. I'm sure a lot of us have access to the textbooks. I know which ones we'd be looking to order. Obviously, follow the link and then speak to the finance department in your school about how you go about ordering those. And then the dedicated subject partner is Mark Beatty. Twitter, there's email and live chat, there's community links as well. So there's a lot of support from Pearson available. Now I'm conscious of time. Obviously, if you need to go, you can go. I will stick around for another 10 minutes just after this time. If there's any questions, then by all means type them in the chat. If it's been useful, please take away the documents. You might, like I said, I've tried to design them so they can also be used, face to face as well. And they can be adapted. You can take the answers out, you can put your own in from where you work, etc. So thank you very much for that. Is there any questions that people have? Thanks, Jonathan. That's much appreciated. Hopefully, it's been very helpful. Sorry, Irene. I suppose what I mean by the classic essay is just that essay, as in, there's no need to refer to extracts. There's no need to refer to sources. It is very much. If I just go on my screen now, I'll just flick back. What I mean by a classic essay, that's probably poor terminology for me. I suppose I gotta get that. So this type of question here: how accurate is it to say the superpower relations between the USA and USSR improved greatly during the years, or then another type of essay is the ones where it says explain your answer using extracts 1 and 2 or using sources. So you've kind of got like very much, I suppose you've got source essays, you've got extract essays, then you've got the standard historical essay, which is kind of in many ways explain or explain your answer against a statement, or just explain what you think. Thank you, guys. If Irene, like I said, takeaway, you should be able to download these from Zoom itself. And you can obviously use them, continue reading through, because I know there's been a lot of information. It's a very tight margin, the 2 hours to kind of go through. How many questions is it? Maybe it's like, well, quite a lot of questions, especially essays. So take the time to kind of go over them and just refresh yourself and kind of see. And if there's any other questions, then contact Pearson, I suppose, about that. I've tried, like I said, everyone, I've tried to kind of go over as much as kind of give just some advice and everything like that as well. Design it to be used first, in schools as well. Just looking at your question now, Kendall. Students not done GCSE. I was wondering what's the best way to fast track a student to a level 3 grade. Ooh. as in we're talking level 3, as in like to write in answers that would be on the like on the mark scheme being level 3. Yeah, so that's what we mean. Ooh, well, obviously it'll depend on. Uh, Let me think. It'll obviously depend on kind of like obviously what their English like writing skills are like. If they're strong, then that's obviously kind of like I would say that's kind of like part of um the battle almost, but also kind of I suppose looking at what you teach, um, how adaptable are they? Because the if they've never done it before, I suppose it's you might want to give them a lot. There'll be a lot of structural support for questions needed to be given. There's probably going to be a lot of you know, kind of like extracurriculum activities for them to do, kind of like a separate pack, perhaps. Because I suppose if they're coming into it, it's understanding that, to start them off, I suppose, on the kind of the how far do you agree essays, and like let the lessons be kind of knowledge bases for them, and then constant. It's going to have to. I suppose it's going to be a lot more practice, practice, practice writing than a lot of students that like you other students who've maybe done history before might actually need, if that makes sense. It's quite a hard one because obviously, if they haven't got any prior knowledge of history, I don't think it's the knowledge that'll be a problem. I think in many ways it's the difficulty comes from the writing for it. But if they've obviously got because there are similarities with obviously English, then maybe speaking obviously to them about how they write in English, speaking to their English lecturers or teachers, and kind of then like providing them, right, this is a question, this is a type of question should be asked, even like providing them with this is what the model answers look like. What I want you to do is yes, I would say so. I think first start for the 25 markers, and a good thing to do, perhaps something that I used to do for students who perhaps struggled with like writing essays at first, is give them, let's say you give them a half an essay already written and ask them to finish it off, if that makes sense. So like if we do let's try and find there's a where's that. Like if we give them, let's say, like we have this question here, just how accurate is it to say that the completion of the Long March was the most important reason for the survival of communism in China? So like you could give them a paragraph, an answer which has two of the reasons, which is like it's that agree and disagree, and then ask them to either choose once they've done the knowledge. Right, I want you to finish it up. It's up to you to write a paragraph which is right, agree, disagree, because the answer already covers it for them, so it's not for them to worry about that yet. And then as they write that for you, you mark it. You might then go, right, I want you to do that, and then do a conclusion. And then the next one, you take away another paragraph, and you keep getting them to add, like, and then all of a sudden, so it could be like almost like a step-by-step process. Does that make sense? It it's just I suppose kind of thinking along those lines of like there's no point kind of chucking someone in, I suppose, that who's never done it before. Like and just saying write this because it's going to be overwhelming. So kind of give them part of it and say, look, because you haven't done it before, and the conversation can go. It's not that I don't think you're capable, absolutely not. It's like we're going to build you up step by step to get used to this structure. Look at my structure, look at this, and then write a paragraph and a conclusion. Next week or in 2 weeks' time, you're going to write two paragraphs and a conclusion. The week after, three paragraphs, and then it's like hopefully it just churns like that. I'm trying to click in the background whether that comes through or not. I don't know. But yes, hopefully that's always a good little. And again, structure bookmarks, that kind of thing. It might be the case of where you might want to simplify the structure for them a little bit. You might want to again look at what English does and kind of say, right, I just want you to focus on people who mentioned peel paragraphs, or P paragraphs, and then do the same thing for sources and extracts questions as well. you write half an extract question, right? I want you to do extract two, but comparing what from what I've read. And it shows you that they're reading answers as well and understanding. So yeah, hopefully that is hopefully good luck with that. Any other questions? No problem, Kendall. Okay, well, I think that is the presentation drawn to a close. Close, sorry. Nash, I think that's about us done. No, your co-host, so I think, do you have to end the meeting?